Welcome to the More to Life podcast. I am your host, Elle Mace. And today we are joined by Stefanie Michele. Stefanie is a binge eating and body image coach. Hi, Stefanie. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. We were just talking about the fact that it's your 9 a.m. and my 2 a.m. because you're on the other side of the world.
I'm just getting started.
I was saying I'm about to clock off, and we've also had that conversation that you never clock off in this job.
This is true.
It's 24/7. So I've just given your title, but please just tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do.
Yes. So as I was mentioning before, I've lived experience with recovery from binge eating, among other versions of disorder, and body image issues, significant body image issues, as well as like anxiety and depression at times too. So when I recovered from this, which sounds like such a linear wrapped in a bow way of saying it, but it was a general recovery process I went through about 6 years ago. I ended up just changing my entire career and everything I wanted to do into pouring my heart and soul into helping other people, because I never thought I would ever be here. I never thought that I would be in a place where I would be able to talk about this and not be binging and not be restricting and not be battling myself all the time. So I became a coach, and now I work with other people who are dealing with these things. And I'm also in somatic training to work with people with anxiety as well, because the nervous system has become really important to me through this work.
Absolutely. Okay, so why don't we rewind?
Yeah.
And how old were you when you first started to realize I've got some struggles with food in your body?
I was about 15 when I developed what would be called anorexia now. It was on the border of being diagnosed at the time. I dieted, like when you become an adolescent, and I was putting weight on, I think, just normally because that's what you do when you go through puberty. And it was just a little bit pathologized in my house. It just was kind of like, oh, you got to watch. So I started to, just watch my weight and become a little bit more obsessed with it. By the time I was 15, I was restricting really significantly, going through a lot of different things in my life, coping by not eating essentially. And then one day, about a few years in, the switch flipped and I just started binging. I just remember the first binge I ever had and like how it happened, and like this slow motion kind of, I did not know what was happening to me kind of way. And then for the next 20 years or so, I just went through binging, bulimia, orthorexia, which is an obsession with clean eating and healthy eating. And I just kind of fluctuated around trying to fix myself the whole time and trying to get to this place where I would finally be able to breathe out. And I thought that once I fixed my body or once I fixed my eating, I would just be okay and all my problems would go away. And when I reached the age of 40, I was like, I'm about to turn 40 and nothing's changing. Every year is the same. Every endeavor is the same. Nothing's going to change unless I do. And so that was just the beginning of a process that ended up actually changing my life.
Yeah, so you did actually hit that rock bottom of like, you would have had many times where you're like, this is enough now, no more. But then obviously there was something that made you really decide that this is enough. You had that moment.
Yeah. And you think I have 3 daughters. So you would have thought that would have been it. Because a lot of people say like, oh, did you recover for your daughters? And it's like, I wish I could say that was enough to get me to change. But there was never any amount of logic that was going to convince me. It was just sheer exhaustion. It was like, I couldn't anymore. I was drowning in myself. And that just became really clear to me.
Yeah, I can totally resonate with you. That was exactly it. Like, I even tried the whole health anxiety on myself. I was like, if you continue this way, you're going to you're going to be so ill, like you're going to die. Yeah. I was like, it doesn't work. It actually just
doesn't.
From exhaustion of being like, I am so, and like anger as well, because you just got to the point where like, I'm so fed up of this.
Yes. And I talk about that a lot because a lot of anger is a tough emotion for people. And I work with a lot of people who are very afraid of anger. And I would say that was the emotion that probably helped me the most in recovery, because you just get like, what am I doing? And why do I feel like I have to? What is happening in our culture that makes me feel like I can't just be? And just like starting to think about it from that cultural perspective was a big part of it for me. And just to kind of be like a little bit of that rebel. I don't know. I don't want to subscribe to this anymore. And the body image piece and like always needing to look a certain way and eat a certain way and be righteous through all that, like started to piss me off.
Yeah. Oh my God, absolutely. Like that is, but thank God that you actually got to that place where you could make that step. Yeah. So going back then, have you identified, maybe there's not one thing, maybe there's a few, but have you identified maybe the reasons, the catalyst, the causes for why you even started with
Yeah.
anorexia?
That's a great question. And I think that on the surface, right, we all would say, oh, I wanted to change my body. Usually it starts out as like a body strategy, which it was. I mean, I was definitely a victim of feeling like my body wasn't good enough. And I was looking at the things around me. I grew up in the 90s. So it was a lot of Kate Moss and a lot of like 17 magazine covers and Us Weekly magazines. And that was definitely a part of it. But at the time in my life, I was actually really, this started around the age of 15. And I think I was just really struggling with becoming like leaving childhood a little bit and almost like this lack of readiness to do that. And watching my friends get boyfriends, and I just felt really left behind. And I felt really lonely. And my family also moved to a different state in the middle of my high school career. And so I think that I was just feeling a lot. I had a lot of emotions and I had no idea what to do with them because my family was very much like, stop being dramatic. Like, you'll be fine. Everything's fine. Like, it was just very minimizing. And I was a feeling kid. So I had a ton going on and like in puberty too. And I think I just didn't know what to do with it. I was like, all that energy just ended up getting funneled into dieting, which was already there. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was like the more I would restrict, the lonelier I would get and the more obsessive I would get. The more I was felt like I was controlling these emotions. So I think it just became almost like an addiction as a way of coping with feelings, which sounds so cliche, but it was so true at the time. And then it just took on a life of its own after that.
Yeah, that is such a good explanation. Took on a life of its own. Like, I can resonate with that, but also speaking to so many people now, it's like it feels like a beast for people. Is your someone has?
Yeah.
I would say I felt like I've been taken over by an alien.
Yes. It's not like a willful thing. It's like a force field. I have a client who calls it a force field, and that's exactly what it feels like.
Yeah, to actually get out of that, I think we still so much misunderstanding. There's still this like, okay, I need to stop this, so I'm going to find another food plan or find something that's going to work for me or change my body, and that's going to get rid of all this. But I'm
Yes.
sure you know, as do I know, that is not the answer.
In fact, it probably makes everything worse. And especially with binge eating, which was very poorly understood at the time, still generally is. The idea was you need to moderate, you need to figure out how to eat less. And of course, that was what I believed. Like, I was gluttonous in my mind and I was just extreme and I had too much, too much, too much. And so all of my efforts to recover were about controlling myself. But all of that actually made everything that much worse. This whole idea of like controlling myself became like fuel for needing more and more and more and more and more. I think about like all the ways I tried to recover before I actually did were fueling the disorder more than like helping me. And I just had no idea.
Yeah, absolutely no idea. And why is that? Like, who was sending you these messages? Why did you believe that that was the answer?
Well, because weight is so pathologized. So it was like this, and food is pathologized. Like, needing as little as possible is the ideal, especially if you're female. Your goal is to be minimal, to be like effortless, but also
Yeah.
very, very beautiful, and also eat like as little as possible. And this is just the way we talk about things. It's not like we see it like that, it's just the way it is. So to me, it was like, I didn't even question that this was an issue of restriction or that this was an issue of feeling oppressed by rules. It was more like, oh, no, no, no. You need those rules. Like, that is what you lack. You lack any kind of moderation. So that must be what we need to go after, not understanding that moderation comes from like permission and freedom and being able to understand that you have agency. And it was like I was constantly trying to take away my own agency, which was only fueling this whole thing. It's a very backwards kind of way that our culture talks about it and doesn't understand the way psychology works around this in many ways.
Definitely. So the nickname of disordered eating, for anyone listening, is the life thief. So how did that show up for you? Like when you were in the thick of all of that, all of the experiences that you had and the ways you were eating or not eating, how did it steal your life?
Oh my gosh, I gave away most of my life to this. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm trying to get like crawling my way back now, making up for lost time. But my college years, which I know you guys call university, but like this is the time of life where you're supposed to really be like becoming an adult. And this is what some of the most meaningful friendships you make and the independence piece. And my college life was nothing but isolation and just trying to survive. I really missed the social pieces, like in high school too, because I was always staying home to avoid eating, or I was staying home because I had to exercise, or I was staying home because I had binged, or because my body felt gross. And I was like, I can't show up, I can't put clothes on. A lot of my social life in my younger years, 20s as well, was really limited. I lost some friends because of this, because I didn't show up to certain things. I wasn't accountable. I had no sense of like wanting to be in the world. So I didn't go to my best friend's 30th birthday party, and she couldn't understand. So it really ruptured a lot of friendships that I had. And I did get married, I did have kids. I don't know how that happened, but I spent a lot of time in bed, depressed, and jobs were really hard for me to stay with because I just couldn't show up to work a lot. I mean, depression was another piece that really just layered into this. And I didn't think there was really any other way. I just thought that I was this kind of person, that I was just, I had a lot of adjectives for myself. I was unreliable, gluttonous, selfish, boring, and antisocial. I mean, that's just what I thought I was.
Yeah, definitely. But actually, that's just the disorder making you feel like that.
Yeah, well, now I know.
So, when you met your partner, then, how did it show up in terms of trying to build a relationship with somebody that you were obviously living with as well?
My his name is Mike. He's just not a diet culture kind of guy. He doesn't have that mentality. You know, I think it's easier sometimes for men, and I'm not saying it's easy for men because I know that there's their fair share of pressure as well. But he just didn't have this kind of idea about what a female needed to be or look like. He wasn't bought into that. So eventually he ended up discovering in a way that I had an eating disorder, because at the time I was taking pills to suppress my appetite, and he had found one that I must have dropped, and he asked me about it, and I think I just was like, oh, I have an eating disorder, and this is what goes on, and I just told him everything, and he just listened, and he was like, wow, like I've never dealt with anything like this before. It's not something that he was familiar with, but he wasn't judgmental, and he was just very safe. And I think that was probably the central force in our relationship was safety, because I grew up in a judgmental household. I grew up with a lot of expectation, and he didn't have any of that. And to this day, I mean, he's partly the reason why I was able to get here, because he provided me with some kind of safe grounding board from which I could really feel free to be myself, and even to collapse into myself at the times when I needed to. And he would still just kind of stay there, like this steady anchor. He was a safe person to share with. Not having secrecy around it was kind of game changing for me, because I had the experience of being able to have this disorder without feeling shame about it.
Yeah, so actually, it kind of took a little bit of the power away from it because, well, it's not so secretive now. It's not so naughty and all the rest of it that
Yeah.
actually might have kind of eased it at home for you.
Yeah.
When I decided enough was enough, is because I did know I wanted kids, but my biggest thing was, how will I go through pregnancy? How will I gain that much weight and grow a baby? It's going to send me sideways. So that was kind of one of my things. But you were going through pregnancies with your eating disorders. How did you navigate that?
Oh my gosh. Remembering that I wasn't yet recovered through, I had three pregnancies, and for each one, I gained weight. And I also like binged a lot because my hunger was so unpredictable. And obviously, like the hormones doing what they do, like I would find myself ravenous, and then I would try to restrict that. And like, yeah, I'm not proud of the ways in which my eating disorder showed up during my pregnancies. But with the body image, again, this was just a period of time where I would hide. I didn't want to go to my own baby shower because I'd gained so much weight. And in another pregnancy that followed that, I tried to really control the amount of weight I gained, which is really tricky to be doing that when you're pregnant. So I wouldn't say that I somehow like figured out a way to get through my pregnancies unscathed. I think that it was probably part of the exhaustion that ended up leading to my recovery later, because all I was doing that entire time was fighting myself and berating myself. I don't have a lot of pictures actually of myself with my oldest daughter, any of them really, because I was afraid postpartum, I didn't want to be in pictures. So the only pictures you'll find of me and my infant children are very close up, just like me and my face. There's no pictures of me like candidly holding my baby or like at the playground with them, even as toddlers. Like I would not be photographed. So a lot of it was missed in photographs.
Oh gosh, so hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
How when you have those reflections of those missed opportunities. And actually, in the moment, you might have been absolutely fine, but actually, it would have been nice to have had those memories
Yeah.
on paper to look back at.
Yes. And sometimes my oldest daughter, who's now 14, kind of has asked me, like, why aren't there photographs of you? Or she would also say, like, why did you always wear the same outfit in any picture we have? Because I was always in like wearing black. I always had on just like kind of this like uniform almost of motherhood because I had a hard time getting dressed. I had a hard time putting on like real clothes, so to speak. And yeah, she noticed.
She noticed. This is a message I say so much. Like, I mean, she's 14 and she's noticed, but she noticed before she was 14. Like, kids, they see everything, don't they? Like,
Yes.
doesn't matter
Yes.
how old they are. My 5-year-old will notice if I don't have potatoes on my plate and she has potatoes on her plate.
Yeah. Yeah. They're paying attention to everything. There was this period of time where she was in kindergarten and she was wearing black pants every day. And I said, and this is at a time where, she had all these fun clothes and all these colorful clothes. And I said, let's put on these pants. Let's put on this, and she was like, but you wear black every day. And she was 5. And at the time, I mean, I was just like, I can't look. And the shame just compounded because, again, it wasn't enough to make me change. It was just enough to make me ashamed. And then I was like, look what I'm doing. I'm making my 5-year-old be afraid of colors because all I can wear is black. And now she thinks that that's what you do.
Yeah, yeah. It is just such a good message for people listening, though, because I think there's a lot of people who are in the thick of eating disorders or disordered eating who still think they can manipulate it and still think they can hide it. And to a certain extent, they can to the outside world, but in your own home and your children
Yeah.
are literally like your shadows who are following your every move. It's going to be fucking exhausting if
Yeah.
you want to try and hide that.
Oh yeah, and as soon as they cross a certain age anyway, they're going to start picking up on things. They pick up on the energy of it too. It's not just what you're saying and even what you're doing, but it's the way like when we're carrying so much fear and like we're like holding our breath around food or around with our bodies or when we look in the mirror, the subtleties of our body language and the energy that we're speaking with. Kids absorb that like sponges more so than we do as adults because their brains still haven't figured everything out, so they're just taking everything in. And again, like this is so hard because it's like, what do you do when you're like, I know, I'm aware that this is happening, but what do I do about it?
Yeah. And that's the toughest part of it all, isn't it? That how do you actually go about making this change? If you're someone that's been in this for 20, 30 years, it's all you've ever known.
Yeah. It's your
It,
life.
it's your life. Like your identity as somebody who's free and flexible is unknown for so many people.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, you can't just flip that switch. And so that was eventually, I think all of that over years was what got me to this place of being like, this is going to be the rest of my life if something doesn't change. And I think it wasn't like one single moment or one single thing. It was more like all of what I just talked, like college and high school and all of these things I missed in life, plus now watching my children sort of absorb it. Like it gathers and gathers and gathers until like at one point it's like you can't see past it. You can't move through that anymore. And that's the exhaustion to me. That's where it was like, what have I done? Or like, what is happening to me? And how do I change it? It has to be drastic. For me, it was a really drastic change. It wasn't like a slow recovery. It was like an all-in process that was born of this, like, if I don't do something drastic, I'm just going to stay this way and get sucked back in.
Yeah. So you had to do, well, you'd been used to the all or nothing anyway.
Right? Exactly.
So might as well do recovery all or
That's
nothing.
exactly what I did. I always say, like, I didn't just move out of black and white thinking. I just flipped the way the colors were and I went in the other direction, which isn't for everybody. It really isn't. But for me, it really helped because it was just this kind of like the anger we were talking about. It was like I'm radically rejecting all of this and I'm going to be so firm on that side of the fence that there's no questions. I'm not going to be pulled into any doubt about it. I had to be that extreme about it in order to recover. That is what eventually helped me. And that doesn't mean that I still live like that. Like I have a lot more nuance now, a lot more gray area with food. And I can look at a salad and not be afraid of it anymore, afraid that that's restricting. But I also can look at a cupcakes that we had for my daughter's graduation last night. Like I can also have that without feeling afraid either. And that took me years. But in the beginning, it was this like radical rejection of anything that resembled restriction.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's almost like you took that stubbornness, which kind of makes people successful in the disordered eating. Doesn't matter whether you give me a cake, I'm not eating it. It's like
Yeah.
that stubbornness, you managed to channel that energy
Yeah.
into like, I am not doing diet culture.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. It was like, I am taking what I have, this thing that had been like oppressing me. I was like, I'm going to turn that around and push it out. So it was less about my flaws and my problems and my shame and more about F everything. No, what is this doing to me and my family? That anger really was, and the stubbornness, yes, was my toolbox for a while.
Yeah, definitely. So your environment when you were younger, when this all sort of started for you, and for those years, and whoever was at home in your home environment, do you talk to them about it now as a recovered person?
So funny you ask. Like I said, my daughter graduated from eighth grade last night, which is going into high school. And so my parents are actually here right now. They're like outside of the door. Shh. But actually, yes. When I started recovering, one of the biggest things I was afraid of, I was like, I'm going to probably gain weight because I had been suppressing my weight. It was a lot of weight cycling throughout the years, but I had been suppressing my weight essentially. And I knew that I was going to gain it. And I couldn't bear the thought of just like gaining weight and not naming the elephant in the room. You know what I mean? Like, so I actually emailed my family, my brother, my sister, my parents, and some friends when I started. And I was like, I just want you to know that I'm starting something that I believe, I didn't even get into like the nitty gritty. I was like, I'm doing something that's right for me and I'm going to be gaining weight. And I want you to know that this is not a reflection of a problem, that this is something that I'm doing with open eyes and it's part of a process and I don't want any comments about it or any, you don't need to worry about me, and this is something that I'm doing for myself, kind of like almost like setting some boundaries around like don't comment, just let me do this. So they knew, and I didn't actually speak about it face to face with them for a while, for many years. And they admitted later, they were like, we thought it was just another thing, like another diet, thing that you're going to do. And is this even for real? Like they had to learn that it wasn't just another phase of my life. So yeah, they know now, and we talk about it now, and it's still not my favorite subject to talk about, but it's out there.
And why is it not your favorite subject to talk about with them?
Because there is a lot of diet culture in them still. And just
Yeah.
because I went through this doesn't mean they did. And sometimes, even still, my dad will say things like, doesn't that have a lot of sugar in it? I thought you didn't like a lot of sugar. And it's like, that was 10 years ago. Sometimes it's just tricky to navigate it because I'm not going to get on my soapbox every time I'm around them because it, you got to pick your battles. But yeah, there's a moderate amount of awareness.
It's really difficult, isn't it? I think you have to pick your battles. You can't preach to the unpreachable, not just parents or family, but I've talked to many people who are, they're right in it on sort of like, right, I'm intermittent fasting and I'm this and I'm that.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not even going to go there. Like,
Yeah.
not even a conversation that is worth having right now.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think when I started my business for the first couple of years, I was trying to convert people into try this route now. And now
Yeah.
I'm very much like, you're not ready for, like, there's people that are ready for this and there are people that are not. And actually, maybe you
Yes.
need more time.
Yes, and I've adopted the mentality now of like, I don't need to prove anything to the world anymore. So I think in the beginning, I was like learning about it and I needed to believe it more. So I was always preaching. Now it's like, look, you can live your life the way you want to live your life. I just don't want to be oppressed by it. So I don't want to participate in those conversations. And I certainly don't want you talking about to my children that way. Aside from that, you can do what you need to do. If you're working with me as a client, then of course you're here to approach this. But in the world that, my personal life, I don't need to convince you of anything if you're not looking to be convinced. Everyone can do their own thing.
Yeah. And I think actually sometimes the more people try stuff, i.e., you and I tried endless, 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 you then actually have to have that proof, don't you? That, okay, it's not working. And actually, until you get to that point where you've proved to yourself it's not working, can you then be ready? Otherwise, you
Yeah.
might always still have that thing saying, but I didn't try that plan and I didn't
Yes.
try that one.
Yes. Sometimes it's why I think I have clients that span from like age 18 to I've had a 70 something year old client. And the extremes have different challenges. But working with younger people, I find that it's often a lot harder because there's still a lot of ideas of like, I can figure this out. I can find the loopholes. I can do this a different way. And until you go through all of those different challenges and experientially are learning that, like, oh my gosh, it all ends in the same place. This is all just different cloaks for the same thing. That is eventually what allows you to be like, I have to understand that there's something else for me. And that is part of that exhaustion too. And I think there is something about like age and like the experience of it that allows for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a question for you, which you actually kind of answered a little bit, was that day that you said, right, I'm going to recover, did you have the fear of weight gain?
Oh my gosh. That was the whole thing. I
Yeah.
mean, I could have done it all if that wasn't the factor, but that was the reason why I didn't recover. I was never willing to sacrifice my control over my body for recovery. And this was the first time in my life that I was struggling so much from a mental health perspective. Interestingly, coming out of a fasting, which seems to be the biggest catalyst for binge eating. For the first time in my life, I was like, I think I value my mental health more than I value my body image. Even though that is a part of my mental health, it was almost like there's something even more than that. I said to myself, let me try this for a year. And I will not interfere. I will just trust this for a year. And if at the end of the year, I find that this is like absolutely unbearable, that I cannot live in a body, even if it does give me some kind of peace with food, if I can't live in the body that I land in, that I can back out. It was almost like the experience thing. It was like, if I find that like recovery is not actually worth it from a body image perspective, then I'll have that experience of knowing that. And I'll be like, you know what? I do have to control my weight now because there isn't another way. That was the out that I gave myself. And that actually kept me sane because if I didn't have that option B, that like back door, I don't know, I probably would have gone running back to restriction.
Yeah, that is your safe code, isn't it? Just try this way. You don't have to stick to it. Just
Yeah.
try it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fear of the weight gain, I remember so well the day that I decided. And I actually, because I didn't have kids or anything, I was searching and searching and searching for retreats where I could just go and hide, another country, and actually just eat like when I'm hungry. And I remember thinking, right, I'll blow up and I'll get really, really big. And then I'll like, this will happen, this will happen. I was just speculating everything, but I was certain I had to do it away from the eyes of people.
Yes. That's the whole thing. It's like
Yeah.
the vulnerability of that, of being seen. And I also want to say that, like, I ended up in a straight size body. So this was a lot easier. Like I did gain weight and that was very vulnerable. But I work with some people who are like, if I'm already in a plus size body and if I gain weight, I'm going to be in a more of a plus size body. And that is much more dangerous than it is for you necessarily because people are going to troll me in a way that they might make comments to you if they notice you weight gain, but you're not like violating the rules of society in such by being plus size. And that mattered because, and I want to name that matters for anyone listening, because the size of your body will be potentially judged and that people do judge it. And there's a lot of limitations depending on your body size that are factors here in how safe this feels.
Yeah. So what would be your answer to that person that says that?
Well, I work with a lot of people on this, and it's always about choice. So, again, this idea of it might be that having a body that society doesn't allow for becomes more of a burden than the struggling with food, and that you don't have to do this. It's kind of an issue of looking at how do we learn to a little bit more crowd out the values of society, because like it's a real thing. We can't pretend that we don't care about what society thinks, and that like even with medical discrimination and things like that with weight, like that those aren't very real issues. But there's also, I think, for most of us, too much of an emphasis on like what other people think and not enough on like our own lived experience. We're living very much in like a third person. Like, what does so and so think of me? How do I look? How do I appear? We're valuing what other people think more than what we're thinking and feeling. I work with people to like kind of be like, what is your lived experience of life? Like, what is it like to come into first person and live from the inside out instead of to be looking always at yourself? And if we can do that more often, then that experience becomes more of a priority instead of always having the priority be what is everyone thinking of me, which I think is how a lot of people with body image issues are living.
Yeah, absolutely. Just taking away this whole piece is just about the one person. It's just about yourself and actually just switch off from the world around you. And if you could make that decision, imagining that you're the only person on this planet, what decision would you make?
Yeah. Yeah. We don't really think like that because I think we're a culture of like, how do I look? How do I look to others? What do other people think? So we're not used to thinking about what we think, especially if we're people pleasers or if we've grown up like just sort of deferring to others. That's just the way we learn. It's like learning to live differently. It's learning to be like, what do I think and what do I want to feel? And a lot of that is about I had to stop looking in the mirror so much because that was just reinforcing that objective, like, what do I look like? What do I look like? And more like, what do I feel like right now? What am I looking at right now? How is it going outwards instead of looking inwards?
Yeah. So you've touched on definitely depression. I think you touched on anxiety as well. Can you now on reflection see like how connected those two were to the eating disorder?
Yeah. Yes. So I dealt with both depression and anxiety, both. And I always thought that when I recovered, I would no longer have depression and anxiety. I thought that they were my eating, like I thought they were all the same. What ended up happening is that I realize now that my eating disorder magnified my depression and magnified my anxiety hugely. But also, it's not like they magically just went away. So, like, I don't deal with depression so much anymore, but I still have low moods at times. And I definitely still have anxiety at times. So, these things were almost like I started to see it as like the other way around, where like my nervous system, which is how I see depression and anxiety, like the energy of it, is still there. And I used my eating disorder to sort of funnel and channel it. But without the eating disorder, like I said, taking on a life of its own, it didn't become its own source. I would definitely say that I deal much less with depression and anxiety in recovery than I ever did, but it's not completely absent. But it makes it a whole lot easier to deal with those things when I'm not simultaneously dealing with an eating disorder.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you cope with the endless messages like on my phone? Maybe because I'm talking day in, day out to people about this stuff, but my phone is constantly sending me things around food, how you should be eating, how you shouldn't be eating, how this is going to support you preventing cancer and all the rest of it. Or like
Yeah.
all this stuff is so overwhelming. And even as somebody who's fully recovered, I find myself going, ooh, okay, what's this? They managed to get rid of this entire disease from eating this way. Like, let's look into this. How do you navigate all of that?
Oh, it's one of my favorite things. So when I was in my 30s, that was exactly, I had orthorexia and I developed this really strong like fear of eating anything that might give me any kind of disease. And I ate really clean and really healthy. And I was so attached to it. And the way I spoke about it was like a crusade. I was a sugar detox coach. Like I preached from the mountaintops about this.
Oh,
Yeah. And now, when I read articles that kind of say the same sorts of things or watch influencers saying the same sorts of things, I see myself. And I'm like, the energy that that is being delivered with is very much like an identity. It's like an attachment, especially when you're on social media and people are talking about it like in this way that's very moralized and very righteous and very alarmist. If I'm ever reading something or seeing something that sounds in any way like alarmism and then it has all these words attached to it like dangerous, poison, this kind of thing, already I'm kind of like, you are in something. This is coming from a place of dysfunction and like seeking an identity and seeking safety through food. I don't buy into that. If you can present something to me that has like a level headedness about it and can see nuance and is just offering me some information that also factors in all sorts of different other pieces of information, then we can have a conversation and then I can think about something and think about like, does this serve me? How might this serve me or how might it not? But if you're coming at me like, if you eat bread, you're going to die, or people who don't fast die early, it's like, that's too extreme to be reliable. I'm just like, I sort of categorize it as like, that is evidence of dysfunction, which is very rampant in our culture, even among the medical community and even among journalists and all of the people who are writing about it.
yeah, totally. I just gonna say, look, is it coming from somebody who's considering disordered eating or eating disorders? Because if you're struggling with that, then let's say there's somebody who has a complete happy and healthy relationship with food. Like there is absolutely not an ounce of disordered eating in there. They can maybe adapt and try these things out and see whatever they're
Right.
trying to achieve, it they might actually be able to do it and bounce in and out of it. If you've got a full-blown eating disorder and you're
Yeah.
then going to try and cut out sugar,
Right.
now good
Yeah,
luck.
right. It's like I've been there a billion times. I tried all that before. Why would
Yeah.
I think it would work now? Like you have to factor in your context. And there's a certain amount of like, I call it like my lighthouse. It's like, yeah, I have to be in touch with my lighthouse and what I know is true for me. It doesn't matter what's true for so and so. They don't have any disorder to deal with that's going to get sparked again, then that's a different thing. Like I can't go there. So I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah, absolutely. You have been such a pleasure to speak to. Now, one
Thanks.
thing that I talk a lot about is when you're in it, it's not funny, it's not humorous, it's awful and horrendous. But when you come out of it, you can kind of look back at some things and it can feel a little bit funny. I know some of the what I did, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Like that. Oh. Just to give that kind of hope and inspiration to people that one day they will look back at their journey and find some humor in it. What would you say was one of the most humorous parts of your?
Oh gosh, it's like borderline humorous and borderline terrible. I was so earlier in my eating disorder days, I was so I needed my identity to be the skinny one in my family. So when my sister started to diet, she brought home these like diet bars. Again, this is going back to the 90s, these fat-free diet bars. And she brought them home. And I remember being like, she's going to get skinnier than me. And I was very threatened by that. So I went and I replaced all of her diet fat-free bars with the most decadent, rich, fatty bars that I could find, and like unwrap them and like put, and I just, because that's how bad I was. Like, I needed this to be my identity so much that I couldn't bear the thought of somebody else losing more weight than me. Yeah. I mean, it's terrible. But also she laughs about it with me now. So it's like, I don't feel as bad.
I'm totally getting reminded. Is it the film Mean Girls where they...
Yes, it's like, yeah, but this is pre-Mean Girls. Yes, that came out afterwards.
Oh
yes.
My God, that's
what I did.
I'm pleased she finds it funny.
Like half the time.
That is so brilliant. I know of someone else actually who she had someone come and live with her as a housemate. So she lived with her boyfriend. She was very insecure. Her friend came to live with them as well. I think she was feeling a bit threatened, even though she wanted her to live with her. She was a bit threatened. And she replaced all of her diet drinks with full sugar drinks.
Yeah. Yes. It's so, I mean, when you think about it, it's like, look at the lengths we're going to like how disordered this is. I am very well aware of how disordered and almost cruel that is. That's how entrenched that was. Yeah, it isn't funny, actually, now that I think more about it.
It's not logical. And like, there's no logic in a lot of this.
Right. It's desperation. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. So where can everybody find you? If you just share your social media.
Yep. I am Stefanie Michele on Instagram, and I'm on Substack now as well. And I have a podcast called Life After Diets, which is interesting, more to life. Yeah. Same theme.
Oh, amazing. I'll have to have a listen. I will include all that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Stefanie. And I hope you have
You're welcome.
Day.
You too. Talk to you soon.
Bye. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, then please head over to give us a rating. We would really, really appreciate that. And as a return, send us a screenshot of your rating and we will send you a free 45-minute hypnosis for absolute daily motivation. This is a must listen to every day in order to create your best future self.